When you have a show about gratitude, you've got to be grateful for your sponsors. And in our life of gratitude, we all have guides. Somebody that guided us through our lives, that made us appreciate those things that we have. And that's why I'm so delighted and so grateful for our sponsor, Life Guides. Life Guides is a peer-to-peer community that helps people navigate through their day-to-day stressors by providing a place of empathy, listening, wisdom, and support with a guide who has walked in your shoes, experiencing the same challenge or life experience as you. A true life guide. And because you're listening to our gratitude podcast, if you go to their website, lifeguides.com/schedule a demo and add the code HEALTHY2021. The code is HEALTHY2021 in the free text box. You'll get 2 months of their services for free. 2 months for free. So sign up, show your team you care, get a life guide, be grateful for those guides in your life, as I am grateful for our sponsor, Life Guides. Hey, everybody, welcome to Leading with Gratitude Live. I'm your host, Chester Elton, the apostle of appreciation, coming to you live and in color from the Gratitude Epicenter of the Universe, Summit, New Jersey. We are broadcasting on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. And by the way, we love that you are giving us 30 minutes of your time to join our community. We always say, look, give us 30 minutes. We'll give you great information, great inspiration, and a roadmap to a life at work and at home of gratitude. All brought to you by the wonderful people at the Methods Network. If you like the production that you're seeing today, there's only one guy to call. His name is Brent Klein, 512-639-2120. methodsof.com. They do production like nobody. Well, this show is brought to you by our book, Leading with Gratitude, available at fine bookstores everywhere. Again, a great roadmap for a great place at work and in life. Well, I have been looking forward to this show all week. I want to introduce you to a true firebrand. In fact, he is a fire starter. His name is Quint Studer. Let's roll the video and let me tell you a little bit about this amazing guy. Quint Studer has spent nearly 4 decades in healthcare. He worked for multiple healthcare systems, the last stop being president of Baptist Hospital in Pensacola, Florida. In 2000, he founded Studer Group, a healthcare and education coaching company. Company was sold in 2015 and Studer left in 2016. He went on to found the Studer Community Institute, a not-for-profit whose mission is to improve the quality of life for people. He's authored many books, with several listed on bestseller lists. He serves on several healthcare boards and is a frequent speaker, workshop facilitator, and mentor to individuals and organizations. The tools and techniques Quint has created over the years are now staples in healthcare systems throughout the world. And by the way, that is only a fraction of the good work he's done over the years. His latest gift to the world is the Gratitude Symposium, a month-long tribute to healthcare workers all over the world. Please welcome to the show my longtime friend. I am such a geek and just president of your fan club. Welcome, Quint Studer, to the show. Quint, how are you?
Well, I'm great, Chester, and thank you. One of the things that a good friend of mine told me one time when I went to thank him, he said, the one thing you and I will never agree on is who should be thanking who. So again, I'd like to thank you. And I finally caught up to you. I've listened and followed you for years. And I think I've finally figured out what to do. A lot of the things you've been recommending over the years on gratitude and the invisible employee and the care principle. So it's just a real treat for me to be with you today. Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Quint. You're right. Thank you. Those are 2 great words. We can live by them. One of the things that's great about this community, Quint, is we get people from all over. Patrick is joining from Brittany, France, and Ali from Dubai, and Trudy from St. Louis, and Miguel from Houston, Texas. We got Erica from Spain. Really an international community. And we encourage them to put their questions for you in the chat box. And when that happens, we go to JP in our question command center in Wichita, Kansas. JP, wave to the crowd. She's going to monitor everything for us from down there. Love the salute. Listen, I'm more than delighted to have you on the show and followed your work for, it seems like forever. We've written about you in our books, in the way that you manage people. Today, though, we really want to talk about your symposium. This month-long sort of give back. It's free to sign up. The Gratitude Symposium. How did that come about, and why did you become so passionate about this particular subject?
Well, I think there's two things. Chester, I'm a recovering alcoholic in my 39th year of sobriety. And if you're in the recovery, gratitude is such a huge part of recovery. And I've also worked over the years in suicide prevention. And in fact, I have two
Wow.
gentlemen I'm working with right now. And every morning, one of the things they have to do is send me three things that they're grateful for. So I've always been a huge fan of gratitude. One of the things you hear is a heart full of gratitude has little room for anything else. So gratitude's really been a huge part of my recovery life. Well, when we got into this gratitude symposium, what happened in healthcare, as everyone knows, it's just been traumatic and tragic for everyone. And the employees certainly, and my daughter-in-law is a nurse, Donnell, at Beloit Memorial Hospital in Wisconsin. So I get that. I'm on boards of hospitals. I'm on the board of Betty Ford and Hazleton. So you see it from the addiction side and the self-destructive side of what goes on when people are under stress and trauma and so on. I also talk to many people, Chester, and who work in hospitals, don't work for them, but work with them. People that go in and do talks and coaching and consultants. And of course, they felt terrible because they couldn't go in and help. They wanted to, but with tough visitation, not allowing people into your hospitals and healthcare systems. So a lot of these people that for years have spent their life like you, I brought you into the hospital I was at and so on, all of a sudden couldn't work. And we were talking almost like a support group, unemployed support group sometimes for people. And they wanted to give back so bad. And I'm not sure where it exactly came from. I think Liz Jaswick and I first talked about it. Maybe it was I and Jake Poor. But we talked to Joe Ty. We talked about what if we could offer them access to these wonderful people like yourself, and so on. And at first we thought about charging a little bit, things evolve. And then we said, well, let's just do it for free. And let's also throw some money in the pot for the DAISY Foundation, which is a worldwide organization for nurses, and AUPHA, which is a worldwide organization. I'm glad we got people from all over the world in the healthcare administration. So we called, speakers that I know and like you, and it was amazing for example like you. It wasn't like, let me think about it. It was yes. And then all of a sudden people said, well, this person's really good. What about them? And next thing you know, we had 45 of us all together. And so we sent created a the Gratitude Symposium and I tried to make sure there was something for everyone here, from supply chain management to board of directors to medical management to employee engagement, patient experience, physician, and so on. Yet if you're not a healthcare worker, there's still going to be things that really cut across all. We have a lot on diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot on disparity in healthcare and disparity in general. And so we put it out there. And, I was hoping for 1,000. So Nicole Webb Bodie, who's done all the heavy lifting, she's done all the heavy lifting. I just get on these shows and then I walk off and she does all the work. Anyway, so her goal was 1,000. And then all of a sudden, with April 2nd, we announced it. And I think by April 6th, we had 4,200. So then we said, well, let's do 10,000. And we were tracking it to 10. And then we have some great healthcare systems that started saying, well, look, give us some time because we've got to make sure our emails are protected, the firewalls of healthcare. And probably the last week of April, we'll load some people to you. Now, we didn't know some people met. And all of a sudden yesterday, we went up to 48,886 when I went to bed. And I woke up this morning, it was 49,000. And now we went over 50,000. So it just shows that there's a tremendous hunger to feel better, a tremendous hunger to heal.
Yeah. It's so funny. Adrian and I donated our time, or the speakers for the Daisy Fund and so on. And we had that group meeting, and this opportunity came up to do the show with you. I said, hey, maybe we can push over 10,000. We get people to sign up. And then I get this email. He goes, we're over 50,000. Yeah. Just talking about it made the difference. Yeah. Super. I love your generosity of spirit, Quint. I mean, you've always been one that stepped up and said, "How can we help? How can we help people be better to help other people?" And I'm just curious, when did this go from a job for you to a calling? Was there a moment, or was it always kind of part of who you've been?
I think for me, Chester, there was a part of my DNA, and part of it is almost, sometimes even unhealthy personalities have some advantages. It's always that wanting to be part of something, but again, because of my addiction, not feeling part of. So I started out as a teacher of children with special needs, and I loved it. I had purpose. It felt worthwhile. I made a difference. But unfortunately, and this isn't to talk about that, the alcoholism got in the way. And then that really was a turning point for a calling, because as you know, in recovery, you only keep it if you give it away. Now, being a self-centered individual here, that was sort of an uncommon thing. Life is about giving, not getting. So, but that is true. And I did that in healthcare. But then, Chester, I got lost. I will tell you, I got lost because I'm in healthcare, and I made the transition into first alcohol treatment facility, then hospitals. I was getting promoted. I was chief operating officer, all these things. And Chester, I got lost. And I think it's so easy to get lost today in the noise. And all of a sudden, this is when people were running ads, say, why don't we run hospitals like businesses? And we weren't calling people, we were calling them FTEs. Patients were cost per adjusted occupied bed. We're trying to take capitation. We don't call it how many people are we helping. It's what's our market share. And I talk about, I slowly got lost. Now, as a human being, I didn't have the dashboard that I have today, and I try to provide other people. Now, if I'm in a car and I'm getting lost, if I weave over to the lane, I get a speed bump. If I go somewhere else, it might signal. I have one car that actually tells me if I don't go off the lane, and it's not a real expensive car. It's like $30-something thousand. And it even says, your eyes look tired, like pull over and rest. But I didn't have that. And I slowly got lost. It's like that frog in the frying pan where slowly the heat gets up. And I was lost. And I was actually chasing the numbers, I would call it. What's our metrics and how are we doing with financials? But I didn't know I was lost. And I was hanging out with other lost people, and we all were not realizing we don't do this on purpose, but we didn't know it. And then one day, Chester, I was given this assignment to move patient satisfaction. And they put my incentive comp on it, which got my attention. So I was doing everything I could to move the number. And I tell people, I was doing the right behavior, just not for the right reason. But even if you do the right behavior, eventually the right reason shows up. And one day, our patient sat was moving up, and we were sort of getting really quite good. And I was really pumped because I'm going to hit my incentive comp. And then my calling came back. And that's what the Gratitude Symposium is about too. It's keeping our emotional bank account full, but if it does, get depleted, how to build it back up. Or I talk about fire starter, getting our flame alive, the pilot light lit. And I got a letter from a gentleman whose father died at our hospital. He was a widower, and he was the only child. So his dad was a widower, and he promised his dad, you will not die alone. And he was there as much as he could. Now, this is again in the mid 1990s. He wrote this letter, dear sister, because we're a Catholic hospital. He thought sisters were running the hospital. I only got it because I was in charge of patient SAT. That's why I got it. And I was afraid to open it because I thought it was a complaint, and what do you do? And it said, my father died at your hospital. And he said, my father been ill. It wasn't a matter of if he was going to die, when. I stayed there. I tried to be there all the time because my father was terrified he would die alone. I did not want my father to die alone. I went home one day just to shower and come right back. And when I got home, he was supposed to, not cell phone days. The phone rang, I answered it, and a nurse said, you need to get back here right away. And I knew that's my father's going to die that day. I got my car, I drove to Holy Cross Hospital, parked in the parking deck, got up to the third floor at skilled nursing facility. And when I walked off that elevator, I knew I had missed my father's death. And I had promised my father he wouldn't be alone. When I walked into my father's room, there was a nurse holding my father's hand. And my father had died. And she said to me, your father was never alone. I've been here the whole time, and he loved you very much. And at that time, Chester, I got refound. It's all of a sudden that old feeling of purpose, worthwhile work, and making a difference came back. It rekindled me to say it. And then what was interesting, when I researched that nurse, I knew who she was, because Chester, I've been going up on those units with my new behavior. I've been aware, I've been approachable, I've been asking them what I could do. So that behavior, even though I wasn't doing for the right reason, was there. And then the dots got connected. And that nurse wasn't even supposed to be working. Her shift had ended, but she couldn't leave that bedside until she talked to that son. And that's when it happened again. So I think the symposiums, for people that already have the full emotional bank account, keeping it full, but it's also for people that maybe there's been a lot of withdrawals here. And
Yeah,
Stephen Covey
yeah.
says have an emotional bank account. It's to fill that back up. And that's what your gratitude book's all about, leading with gratitude. And once you get there, it's pretty interesting. Once people start writing down what they're grateful for. And the other thing I think you and I've talked about this, also be grateful for what you didn't lose. And you look at it a little bit
Yeah.
different. So that's how I got lost. And I didn't mean to get lost. And now I tell people there are some warning signs that you can put in your own system, so you can find out. You don't have to go way off the range like I did. You can catch it a lot sooner.
Right, right. It's really interesting. This gratitude community, and we love it. They tune in every week, and they've got so much goodness that they want to put out in the world. I love Jason from Nashville said he's a big fan of both of ours, so he said thank you to both of us. Jeff in Brentwood, Tennessee, thankful for the symposium as well, looking to be replenished. We've got a great question though from Janice Perkins in Wichita, Kansas. So let's go to the Question Command Center. I love this question, JP.
Hey, I just want to tell you, Quint, the chat is blowing up with love for you and gratitude for what you're doing. So this audience appreciates you so much. You're going to have to check it out after the show. I want to also personally thank you for your transparency about sobriety and congratulate you. I share 20 years under my belt, and so I see you heart to heart there. The question from the audience is, how can one person make a difference in their healthcare community? What can I do?
Well, it depends. If they're not in healthcare, I think we have to look healthcare beyond just in a hospital. I think, for my people out there in healthcare, they might realize that we call this thing called population health, but sadly, it's usually population health if they have the insurance that we're taking. So I'll tell you what we're doing, which, Janice, I think is really, really neat. I've worked with the University of Chicago on brain development. In fact, 100% of one of my books goes to brain development. I found out that in most places, there's a great majority of kids that aren't ready for kindergarten. And if a child's not ready for kindergarten, they're going to struggle in school. If a girl doesn't graduate from high school, there's a 70% chance she'll have a baby by the time she's 18, 60% chance a boy will end up in jail. So one of the things I'd really love to have them do is contact me at quint@quintstuder.com, because this is what you can do. You can help get children ready for kindergarten. And that can be the best thing you can do for your healthcare community. It's really remarkable. Now, that's one thing. But if the other things, of course, is, healthcare workers have had a lot of challenges. They've had challenges with daycare. They've had challenges with yards. They've had all sorts of challenges. See what you can do for the healthcare worker. I know it's nice to have lights on and say, thank you, you're our hero. But many of them need things. Many of them need help. Many of them need childcare help. You can do those types of things. But I am so committed to this brain development. And I think that's where the community can kick in. Here in Pensacola, we've created early brain gardens. Every mom that leaves a hospital gets a tutorial on how to build her baby's brain. We've had it peer reviewed by Harvard and the University of Chicago. And John List of the Economics Department of Chicago says, if we can get every child ready for kindergarten, we can change the world.
Wow. What a great answer. It's so interesting. Alicia chimed in. She said, my first time at the show, and she really needed this. You continue to just touch hearts and minds, Quint. I love your stories and your transparency. And Jason says, powerful story. There's real power of love that we don't often express in the work of healthcare. Now, you've talked about going on your rounds and finding things that are going right and reinforcing that. This idea of really bringing gratitude into the workplace. I have a daughter-in-law who's a nurse, labor and delivery. And it is amazing to me how much negativity she feels like she gets every day at work, whether it's difficult patients or not great relationships with doctors and so on. Where do you see the future of healthcare going, where we can, get rid of a lot of that negativity and really focus on all the wonderful things that come through when you've got a nurse that stays the extra shift to hold on to the hand of a dying patient? Where do you see the future of healthcare going?
Well, I think, of course, that's a big question. It's going to go to your phone. It's going to go to your iPad. It's going to go to access. But let me bring up with this. And I think it happens, and nobody wants it to happen. But people that go into healthcare have to spend a lot of their time noticing what's wrong. And there's nothing wrong with noticing what's wrong. So, for example, if you're a nurse, you're going in and you're seeing how the vitals are, as the heartbeat, the pulse. If you're a doctor, everybody that comes to you as a doctor has something wrong. So, you come to the doctor, not because you're looking for a well adult checkup, it's because something's wrong. If you're in finance, you're looking for negative variances. So over the years, I've mentioned to people, and it's not just healthcare, but this conversation is healthcare, that people are trained to notice what's wrong. Now, and again, nothing wrong with that, because you do want to fix things. You don't want the patient to go way off before you address it. But that creates a culture of negativity. And research shows that it takes a minimum of 3 compliments to 1 criticism for someone to feel better about another human being. 2 to 1 is neutral and 1 to 1 is negative. So healthcare is geared for what's wrong. And I think that's why we need to create what's right. And that's why when we say, tell me what's going well, tell me who I should recognize. I tell people all the time, if you really want to just mess up your organization, just get on the phone and call who's in charge of temperature and facilities and engineering and say to them, temperature's really good, not too hot, not too cold. They've never had a call like that in their entire life. They're stunned. And so we've got to recognize that we've created cultures built on what's wrong. And we've got to move it, not to say we shouldn't recognize what's wrong, but we've got to recognize it to what's right. Even bosses get wore out. Because when I tell the story, if your boss texted you right now and said, call me, is your first thought, here comes more than recognition? Can't they leave me alone just for a day without thanking me? But bosses get their life sucked out of them too. Because when does an employee go to a boss? When does an employee show appreciation? So it's really, as you say all the time, creating that culture of gratitude, creating that culture of appreciation, but not making it glad handing, making it real, making it authentic, and make it on time. And I think that's really, really the key to this whole thing. So in healthcare, once you start doing that, it's really amazing. And I think the other thing, and I get into this, in healthcare, we spent the last year telling people they need to be more resilient. I'm not so caught up in that. I think people are so dang resilient that they're afraid to get help. I've been doing a lot of work on help in healthcare. So for example, and I'm sure it's another thing, but if you look at medical cost in healthcare, probably one of the top 1, 2, or 3 prescription medications for healthcare workers and antidepressants. Nothing wrong with an antidepressant, but shouldn't more go with it. One of the most underutilized services is the EAP. And I think the sad part is we've got to get rid of this stigma that something's wrong if you ask for help. Something's wrong if you reach out. If you have a bad knee, they rush you they say, oh, you better get rushed to it. But in healthcare, they don't. I work with a medical school, and they just did a survey of medical students and residents. And it's amazing how many of them through this pandemic aren't sleeping as well as they used to, aren't eating, are sometimes doing some self-destructive behavior. Then when it comes, are you comfortable asking for help? The answer is not really. And that's why I am very transparent about my recovery, because that changes things. You let people know it's okay. And we can love this superhero stuff, but sometimes you can play the superhero to the point that it becomes self-destructive.
Yeah, that transparency that translates to empathy, that translates to trust, right? It all goes on. I want to take a minute and just say, look, if you haven't signed up for the Gratitude Symposium, sign up. An amazing array of speakers. It's free. It will fill your bucket. And I'd also like to encourage you to go to methodsof.com. This is our sponsor for our show today. Invest in yourself. This online learning has been phenomenal. There are incredible thought leaders that you can access, from Marshall Goldsmith, the #1 executive coach on the planet, Sally Helgeson, that talks about how to get women to rise, Martin Lindstrom in marketing. I've even got a course there on teamwork. Take a screenshot. It's methodsof.com. And because you're listening to our show, all you have to do at checkout is put in gratitude 2021 and you get a 50% discount. So invest in yourself, invest in becoming a better leader, and doing all these wonderful things that Quint has talked about. It's easy, it's online, and with a 50% discount, it's very affordable. Well, I want to go to Janice Perkins. We have 30 minutes, and I knew this was going to blow by because I know you've got so many great stories, but she's got a great question about this gratitude mindset. So, JP, ask away.
Well, first of all, Alicia also just put into the chat, free what? So that's fabulous. She also asks, in a negative work environment, give some examples for how you bring that gratitude mindset in.
Sure. Well, first of all, you be the example, and you can't be a victim. And you can't fall into the victim of saying, because everybody else is negative, I'm negative. So I think it's looking for what's right. I think it's reward and recognize behavior gets repeated. And you start complimenting people very specifically on the behavior. The other little tool I've done for years, you have to use paper, even this paperless society, but you have everybody on the team or the department put their name on the top of a sheet of paper. And then you just pass it around to everybody that's in the room, and they write why they like working with you. And if they don't like working with you, they leave it blank. At the end of that little exercise, if you have 20 employees, people walk out with 19 positive things from their teammates. You have to start doing the practice of gratitude, and it doesn't come naturally. As we wrap up, Chester, my message here this year has been love, and it's been last year too. In fact, even before COVID. Well, it gets uncomfortable at first to say that. It gets uncomfortable to talk about that. One of my favorite stories is I'm on the board of Tri-Health, and Mark Clement and I've known each other forever. He's the president, and I got into this love thing. And he always walks me down to the car because I travel in for board meetings. And I was waiting for my Uber ride. And all of a sudden, I look at him because a friend of mine died. And on his deathbed, he said to me, his name's John Meislick. He said, tell people you love them, Quint. So I've been doing it now since June 30th of 2019. And I looked at Mark and I said, Mark, I love you. And he said, Quint, your Uber driver is here. About 3 weeks later, I got a little handwritten note from Mark, says he loves you too. So I guess it's like Gandhi says, be the example.
Yeah. Control what you can control. Well, we've got 3 minutes left. So in 30 seconds, what's the one thing you want people to take away from our conversation today?
You can make a difference. Don't underestimate the difference you make. Even if sometimes people don't tell you, you don't get a note, you don't get a card. Sometimes people's lives get in the way where they can't show gratitude and appreciation, but that doesn't mean they're not grateful and they don't appreciate you. So don't underestimate the difference that one person can make.
I love that. Well, listen, we've got a lot of questions that have come in that we haven't gotten to. We'll try to answer them on the back end. I just want to give a shout out to Methods of one more time. If you want this production, Brent Klein is your guy. Take a screenshot, give him a call. We're doing more and more stuff online everywhere. Brent at methodsofleaders.com, 512-639-2120. Invest in yourself as well with the leadership training online. And if you're listening to this show, you get a 50% discount. I love online learning. You can do it at your own pace. Wonderful courses in there. And then, it's based on gratitude. And we love our book, Leading with Gratitude. And our publisher has put together this great little commercial you'll love this, Quint. It's a call to action. Alan Mullally said, I love this book. He saved the Ford Motor Company. And then what should you do after that? You should buy me. It's been great. Listen, thank you so much to the community for giving us 30 minutes of your time. We hope you'll join us again next week for 30 minutes of great information, inspiration, and a roadmap to a life of gratitude at work and at home. Quint, we've got a tradition here. We bring everybody on the screen and we play the music real loud and we dance it out because we're grateful for the community. We're grateful for the joy. So yeah, you got to give me your best move there, Quint. Hey, listen, hope you have a great weekend. Be kind, be grateful, be of service, and sign up for the Gratitude Symposium. We've given you all the websites. We hope to see you there all month in the month of May. Cheers, everybody. Awesome. Thanks again, Quint. Amazing.